Music and streaming platforms could be about to change forever. Recently, there was a new act introduced to Congress, and it's called the Living Wage for Musicians Act. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but let me give you a little TLDR. It says here, the bill that proposes a minimum payout of 1 cent per stream up against Spotify's current rate of 0.003 to 0.005 USD per stream. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a music producer and artist myself, and as somebody that gets about 20,000 streams a week from Spotify and has 20,000 monthly listeners, I definitely can't make a living wage off of music. I make about $200 a month for music right now, and even though that's a position that a lot of artists haven't had, I think that's the problem. Good art is definitely extremely valuable. A place like YouTube that obviously has a lot of advertisers does a really good job of paying their creators properly, but you're never going to put a commentary video on the radio or before a concert. But music can be used in TV, in movies, it can go just about anywhere. In places like Spotify that have a monthly subscription format and have tons and tons of users, I think it would only make sense that they start paying artists a little more. Spotify for Artists has tried a couple different ways and implemented new tools over the last year to almost try to give artists more opportunities to market themselves. For example, one is called Marquee, and basically the whole goal of it is that you give them a song when it's going to release and you give them a few $100s and it's supposed to push it to your audience. But to somebody like me who doesn't have hundreds of dollars to drop on music, it doesn't really make sense for me to do that, to pitch it to people that already follow me. But you know who does have that kind of music? Definitely the larger labels. Another tool they implemented recently is called Radio Play, where you're basically going to give up a percentage of your royalties for them to put your music out there to people that are just kind of casually putting on music. But I don't really appreciate that a lot of these tools for independent creators are trying to take more money out of their pockets. And I know a lot of people would try to argue, well, then don't use Spotify. But when it's become the overwhelming standard, it's kind of difficult not to. Even if you don't do that, then you're going to have tons of people telling you, why isn't your music on Spotify? Back in the day, physical media was a huge way to get your music out there through things like CD sales. And then we moved into an iTunes era where then you were selling your music. But now that things have changed to streaming, it feels like we're giving up things like money for the algorithm, which a couple years ago, it felt like the algorithm was in a really good place and I didn't mind this at all. I feel like my music was reaching a lot of new eyes. Just from speaking with other artists, it feels like streams have almost gotten cut entirely in half. And I don't have any evidence for this, but what it kind of feels like to me is almost like they're forcing your hand into using some of their other methods that cost money. It's like, wow, my music really isn't performing that well. Now I have to use Radio Play, or I have to try to send money to get my music to get marketed. Even though I'm a consumer of Spotify and I love using it as a platform, I still think it's not above criticism. For example, recently they rolled out that any music under 1,000 streams isn't going to collect royalties. And they say that they're doing this to help prevent bots from making a couple of cents. And I can kind of see how from Spotify's perspective, there are so many artists that don't get their music listened to at all. It doesn't really make sense to give them a couple cents. But overall, I just don't really appreciate the sentiment of taking away features from smaller creators or taking away money opportunities. I don't think that just because you create music means you should be able to make a living off of it. But there are tons of artists that are getting tens of thousands of listeners and they're getting thousands and thousands of streams. I've managed to pull in 1 million streams a year, 2 years in a row, and I still can't even make a fraction of a living off of it. And when you think about it, 20,000 people consuming a product is not a small amount of people. And then again, somebody might say, well, it's because of Spotify's algorithms. But I think just because the method up until this point has had some benefits doesn't mean that there aren't negatives as well. I am optimistic for the future. I think that the fact that there's already such a loud voice about this kind of thing means that there will be change eventually. I don't even think going all the way up to a cent is necessary. I think just going up from where it is right now is definitely something Spotify has the bank for. But hey, if you want to support an independent creator, I so happen to be dropping a song on the 29th. If you're interested, you can go ahead and pre-save that in the description. And that's all I have to say for now. Peace out.
You know I'm saving up pocket change for a deeper love. I'm like